Welcome to the Specialty Diver Stress and Rescue. The beginning of the diving day. The sky is cloudless, the sun is shining, the water is crystal clear, and the temperature is just right. The day seems almost perfect this morning as you prepare for your diving adventure. It does not seem possible that a diving day such as this has the potential to turn into a day filled with stress and panic. Stress is a major contributor to rescue situations and diving accidents. The SSI Diver Stress and Rescue course will teach you how to detect, handle, and prevent stress in yourself and your body so that you can become a more comfortable and confident diver. You will also learn useful skills on how to help yourself and other divers if a rescue situation occurs. By the conclusion of this program, you will understand how proper knowledge, strong skills, a high-quality total diving system, sufficient experience, and good physical fitness all help to lower diver stress and increase your diving enjoyment. For most of us, stress has become part of our daily lives. It's an instinct that has developed through the centuries to warn us of potential danger. This instinct has become known as the fight or flight syndrome. As we all know, stress can be difficult to deal with, but underwater it can multiply. Stress multiplies if a demand overpowers your ability to maintain control over the situation. It is rarely a single problem that leads to stress. Rather, it is the combination of problems that occur through the diving day. However, once we understand what leads to stress, we can take action to stop the onset of panic that can lead to diving accidents. By being aware of the cycle, you can beat it at any time. Simply stop, rest, assess the causes, and take actions to alleviate them. If it is something you cannot control, abort the dive. By breathing deeply and relaxing, you can get your breathing under control and stop the psychorespiratory cycle. You should understand the importance of recognizing stress in yourself. If you are truthful about your present ability to manage stress, you can begin to learn how to become less affected by it, which in the long run will increase your diving comfort. In order to relieve or prevent stress, you must first be able to identify its source. If you understand the various causes of stress in diving, you'll be able to avoid these situations or know how to deal with them should they arise. Diver stress is usually attributed to physical, psychological, equipment, or environmental issues, or just the lack of experience. The typical dive can be segmented into 3 distinct phases in which stress can occur. These phases are before the dive, during the dive, and after the dive. As you may guess, each phase presents its own unique challenges. If stress is allowed to pass from one phase to the next, the chance of panic increases. While the worst place for panic to occur is underwater, stress at the end of a dive can be equally dangerous if a diver is cold and tired. A good diving day begins with a good night's rest and a healthy breakfast. This will help ensure that you are mentally alert and well-nourished for diving. Preparation ensures that you will show up with everything you need for the day and that your total diving system is ready for diving. Plan to arrive at the boat or dive site early so you can assemble your equipment and get settled without having to rush before the boat leaves the dock. Pre-dive stress may be triggered if you have difficulties with your equipment. If you have not been diving in a while, you may be a little rusty. This can be frustrating and embarrassing. An annual scuba skills update and occasional practice will boost your confidence in your abilities. Ask your SSI Dive Center about enrolling in a scuba skills update if you need to refresh your skills. Wearing equipment that is too small will constrict your ability to move freely, making you feel awkward and exert excess energy, and can also restrict your breathing and circulation, causing you to become cold faster and to use up energy sooner. Equipment difficulties may also be a product of not knowing how to operate new equipment or from lacking a necessary piece of equipment such as an alternate air source. If you want to learn more about your equipment, ask your SSI dive professional about the SSI Equipment Techniques program. This course is designed to teach you how to perform minor field maintenance. If you use good judgment, dive within your limits, and are prepared with the proper equipment, you should be able to avoid stress and have a satisfying experience. One of the most important rules for dive planning is mental attitude. It is important that you assess your own stress level. A good rule to follow is when dive conditions, dive equipment, or your dive buddy do not feel right, sit out the dive. Smart divers discuss their dive plan before entering the water, review the function of each other's equipment in the case of an emergency situation. Pace yourself as you dress, so that you and your buddy finish dressing at the same time. This will help avoid frustration and overheating, which can lead to stress. Before you enter the water, complete a pre-entry buddy check. Make sure your equipment is properly in place and that air is on. Also, use this time to answer any final questions about the dive plan. When you are both okay, obtain permission from the dive guide to enter the water. Stress is generally easier to detect while on the surface, so we'll review some of the signs of stress to look for while underwater. The buddy system is an important unit to maintain throughout all three phases of the dive. Companionship and communication together increase your comfort, confidence, and enjoyment. Separation from a buddy or failure to communicate may give a diver a sense of isolation and abandonment that could lead to or increase stress. By failing to monitor your air supply or your direction, you could end up low on air and a long way from the boat. Proper navigation and frequent review of your instruments will help ensure an easy swim back to your exit point with air to spare. If a diver refuses to let go of a source of security, such as the boat or a line, or if they refuse to descend, they may be suffering from contact maintenance. An almost continuous flow of bubbles emitting from a diver's second stage regulator may signal that a diver is having difficulty with their breathing or air delivery system. Buoyancy problems, such as sinking and then floating and sinking again, may be the result of the diver's inability to relax. This may be an indicator of over or underweighting, which should be immediately addressed. Excessive behavior, such as the need to continually check the air supply or adjust a particular piece of equipment, may also be a signal of discomfort and stress. Monitor your buddy for a wide-eyed look of fear or fixation of vision. If it leads to an inability to communicate, your buddy is most likely undergoing stress. Remember, it is the combination of problems that lead to panic, not one single stressor. So, if you fail to deal with the stress and continue to dive, it may only take one more problem to lead to panic or an accident. When stress is identified and dealt with, panic and accidents can be avoided. But what happens if stress and panic are not stopped? In this instance, you may need to step in as a rescue diver and take charge of the situation. This process can be defined as accident management, or your ability to control yourself, the victim, the surrounding witness, and the emergency personnel during a diver rescue. While skill level is important to carry out a rescue, remaining calm and staying focused is what will get you through an incident until professional help arrives. While prevention of stress will always be your #1 priority, preparation in the area of accident management may be the difference in saving someone's life. Before you leave for your dive destination, you should prepare an emergency procedure list for your destination. You should know who to contact in the region in the event of an emergency, as well as the nearest emergency medical facility. If you are diving locally, you may simply need to know how to contact the local emergency medical services. In the event of an accident, you, as a rescue diver, will need to coordinate any available personnel to help. If there is someone more qualified on the scene, make yourself available and follow instructions. Mental preparedness is important in any rescue. You, your equipment, and knowing when you have reached your physical limits and abilities is important to both you and the victim. That's when it's time to call for help. If possible, assign someone to record the rescue proceedings, so you have an accurate record of how the incident occurred and the treatment that followed. This will aid medical personnel with further treatment and will help in the event of an investigation. In any life-threatening emergency, the person administering first aid must be able to evaluate the victim's condition. The easiest way to check a victim's vital signs is through the use of the first aid ABCs. Does this match what we are doing in React Right? If not, we need to change to match. A. For airway, be sure there are no airway obstructions and open the airway. B. For breathing, look, listen, and feel for air movement. If the victim is not breathing, give 2 breaths. C. For circulation, check the victim's pulse. If you do not detect a pulse, begin cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR. Begin and continue CPR on victim that has no pulse until help arrives and relieves you. Your early identification and immediate treatment can save a life and help avoid permanent neurological damage to the victim. Every rescue diver is required to be trained in first aid and CPR and should be trained to use an AED. Ask your SSI dive professional about the React Right program, CPR, first aid, oxygen administration, and AED. Through the React Right program, you will learn detailed information on the steps to take to save a life in the event of an emergency. In a diver emergency, follow the 5-minute neuro exam provided in your SSI Diver Stress and Rescue Manual and Accident Management Slate. This exam can be done in the field, but is more accurate if the rescue diver has received proper training on how to perform the exam. Because your medical expertise and resources may be limited, you should simply do your best to stabilize the victim and keep him or her comfortable until you can get them to a medical facility. If the victim is conscious, have the victim lie in a comfortable position and administer oxygen if a compressed gas injury is suspected. When it comes time to transport the victim, you will need to decide the best method of transportation. Ground transportation is the most common. However, if the medical facility is far and time is of the essence, you may have little choice but to airlift the victim, most probably by helicopter. When turning a victim over to emergency personnel, you should be able to relate the details of the accident and the immediate care that was delivered as recorded in your accident record. Proper accident management skills will help you make the difference for a successful rescue. But typically, your diving days will be filled with diving fun and adventure. The skills you learned in your open water diver course, such as buoyancy control, will allow you to relax and have a safe dive. Should an emergency occur, You should be able to help yourself through self-aid by stopping what you're doing, calming down, and taking several deep breaths. You should be able to relax and make a rational decision about what action to take. Buddy assistance is most valuable at the end of a dive when a diver may be fatigued. If your buddy is unable to swim back to your exit point, you may want to help with a simple tow. In towing, it is important to remember to use positive buoyancy to stay in constant communication with your buddy and to ditch any equipment that hinders the tow. Should you need to perform a buddy assist, you should keep in mind the following safety points. These points are covered in further detail in your SSI Diver Stress and Rescue Manual. To begin with, approach the victim so he or she can see you, but maintain a safe distance. Once you assess the situation, make physical contact. This may be enough to calm the victim. On the surface, use positive buoyancy by inflating the BCD and ditching the weight system if necessary. You will need to find out what is causing the problem so you can attempt to solve it. Once you have stabilized the victim, go ahead and tow him or her back to safety if necessary. A buddy rescue is required when a diver is allowed to reach a state of panic. At this point, a diver cannot think clearly or control their actions. When rescuing a buddy, there are precautions you should take to protect yourself from danger. As in an assist, stay out of the victim's way until you feel safe. Once contact is made, be prepared at all times to push away from the victim. If you receive no cooperation from your buddy, establish positive buoyancy and head for the surface. If you feel endangered at any time, release your buddy. If the victim is unable to establish positive buoyancy, do it for him or her. Do not be afraid if your buddy attempts to hold on to you. Modern buoyancy compensators should be able to support both your weight if you are positively buoyant. However, if at any time you feel endangered, push away from your buddy or descend below him or her. The last place a panicked diver will want to go is underwater. You can use a tow to get the victim back to safety, or you can simply coax them to follow you. They should automatically swim towards you because they view you as safety. When rescuing a diver, you need to remain in control to protect yourself from danger. Never attempt a rescue without at least your mask, fins, snorkel, and a flotation device. If you are able to see, breathe, and float, you will be able to help your buddy without endangering yourself. The worst-case scenario in diver rescue is finding your buddy unconscious underwater. The important thing is to get the victim to the surface as quickly as possible so you can begin resuscitation. It will be easier to ascend with the victim if you establish positive buoyancy. If you feel you cannot control your own ascent rate, release the victim and let them free float to the surface. Positive buoyancy will help you relax and float on the surface while you aid the victim. Immediately check the victim's ABCs as covered in accident management. If the victim has no pulse, rescue breathing is of no use, and you will need to get the victim to safety immediately so you can begin CPR. If the victim has a pulse, the amount of care will be based on your distance to safety. If you have a long way to travel and were not able to restore breathing, continue to give the victim one breath every 5 seconds. Again, resuscitation will be much more effective once you get the victim out of the water, so get to safety as quickly as possible. Exiting the water with a victim will of course be easier with help. Before taking the diver out of the water, ditch their equipment so it is out of the way. If you must perform the exit alone, you will probably want to ditch your own equipment also. The saddleback carry is an effective way to get a victim out of the water alone. The pack strap carry is another method of getting the victim out of the water. The lifeguard hoist is a good method for getting the victim onto a dock or boat. Once the victim is safe, Begin first aid and resuscitation procedures as covered in accident management. Overexpansion injury and decompression sickness are the two most common dive maladies, and like all diving injuries, require immediate attention from qualified medical personnel. Good dive buddies should understand the basic symptoms of the most common diving injuries, so they can administer first aid and provide details to medical personnel. When an expansion injury or decompression sickness is suspected, the victim should be administered pure oxygen. It is especially important for dive leaders and others who are responsible for divers to have access to and know how to administer 100% oxygen. Safe divers are those who have learned how to prevent, identify, and deal with stress in themselves and others. They have strong knowledge, good basic skills, a high-quality total diving system, and dive within their experience and limits. Because of the nature of diving accidents, they often occur under less than ideal conditions. The weather may be severe or the seas high. These conditions are another reason that practice of rescue skills is important in order to be able to perform in an actual situation, and especially under poor conditions. Through all of this preparation, you can become a virtually stress-free diver and learn how to control stress and prevent panic in almost any situation.